Welcome to the Green Wasp Removal YouTube channel. In this episode, we remove a large and very active ground nest filled with Eastern Yellowjackets, or Vespula maculifrons, one of the very beneficial native species of wasp here in our area around northeast Indiana, USA. Though it's one of the most beneficial, it's also one of the most aggressive. As you see here, they were attacking our gloves and our bee suits immediately as soon as we got anywhere near them. They were attacking the cameras, but we were able to collect a good number of adult female worker wasps that came out to attack, and we use these for Venom Immunotherapy, which is why we collect them. This was a large nest with about 6 layers of comb in it, and it was buried deep under a complex system of tree roots, some of which were as large as your arm, and others were smaller and anywhere in between. And we had to cut quite a few of these roots out of the way before we could even get to the nest, which was about 1.5 feet underground in a large expanding cavity that the wasps had dug out. Once we had gotten down to where the comb was, we found a whole bunch of new queens that were being born in this nest. You see one here being contained. These are the new queens that will usually mate at the end of the season and then hibernate over winter and start a new nest next spring. Finally, we got to the brood comb here. You see it was a 6 or 7 layer comb structure, and we found what we believe was the main queen, the foundress of this nest, and we captured her. Once we had the brood comb removed and contained, we took measurements on this cavity space that they had dug out underground to help their nest expand. And it's pretty amazing how much dirt these tiny little insects can actually remove. They took out huge amounts of dirt, one little mandible full at a time, to make that large space. Once the nest brood comb is contained, as you see here, and the adults have been collected for Venom Immunotherapy, we take it back to the barn. And this season we experimented with a new incubation box, which was a repurposed old chest freezer. We put several nests in there this season, and they did very well in there. They were able to pupate out a lot more adult wasps, which we could then go ahead and collect for Venom Immunotherapy. So we'll show you how that relocation process works when we put them into the incubation environment. For now, let's take you back to September 23rd, and we'll show you the entire job. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us today. If you enjoy the content on our channel, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment to let us know you're there. Enjoy the show. September 23rd, 2024. We've been called to a private residence where they have a ground nest. Looks like a very busy, active nest. Just a note on voiceover here. As soon as we got close to this nest and set up the camera gear, they started to come out and attack the camera, attack the gloves that we were wearing. So we could tell this was an aggressive species, probably Eastern Yellowjacket. First thing we're going to do is take a species ID based on the pattern on the back of the wasp. And that looks like Vespula maculifrons. You can tell by the anchor-shaped pattern on the first terga. Here we'll freeze the frame for a moment while we show you a close-up of this anchor pattern. That's the classic Eastern Yellowjacket, or Vespula maculifrons pattern. Very aggressive species. As you can see, all we did was walk next to the nest, put a camera up near it, didn't bother it much, and they immediately attacked. Both gloves. So now they're stuck in the leather. Now with human skin, they can sting multiple times without getting stuck. They don't have a barbed stinger, they have a smooth stinger. So unlike honeybees, they can attack in force and sting multiple times per wasp. Very dangerous when they're in a location too close to people. So as you can see, we're on a sidewalk here. Kids walking around, people walking their dogs. In a situation like that, these need to go. So we're going to take care of them today. So we're setting up the vac as far away from the action as we can. That way they will focus their energy and their attack on the collection device here instead of on the vacuum or on us. So we're going to go ahead and set that up now and start the attrition collection. So a note on voiceover here, what we're doing is setting up the vacuum extraction gear to run automatically. Basically over the next 6 minutes or so, you're going to see several clips put together of this first phase. The first phase is always allowing the wasps to come and go on their normal foraging behavior, and to allow the vacuum extraction gear to just collect them all without causing any swarming. And that's the first phase of every collection we do typically, especially with ground nests, because there's so many of them and they can be so aggressive. We don't want a huge swarm happening all of a sudden all over this neighborhood. So we do the first phase of collection just without disturbing them much, just setting the collection device right in front of their entry hole, and they come and go like usual. This will happen over the next few minutes. You'll see what that looks like. Then we're going to show you phase 2 of a typical collection, where we start to bang them out by causing vibration around the nest, stomping or hitting the ground with a shovel, whatever we can do to make them come flooding out of the nest. Because there always comes a point during phase 1 where things slow down and the wasps are not coming out as readily. That's why we start to bang them out. So this was an extremely active nest, so you'll see over phase 1 here over the next few minutes before we go to phase 2, just by leaving the collection gear next to the opening, we collected a ton of them right off the bat. The red circle you see here shows where the entry hole is, and you'll see wasp after wasp just coming out of the hole and immediately getting collected, and plenty of others flying in trying to enter, getting collected as well. As you observe this nest just going about its regular activity, foragers leaving the nest to go hunt or collect nectar, others coming back after having hunted and collecting nectar, the traffic is intense, and it's like this all day long, all day. As long as the sun is up and it's warm enough outside, these wasps are going to be super active. This is why they are so incredibly important to the ecosystem. They are the apex predators in the insect world that controls the population of so many other pest insects, that without these wasps doing what they do all summer, every summer, spring and fall included, we would be in trouble. There would be a huge overpopulation of a lot of the insects that we don't want in the ecosystem. So whenever you find a nest like this, if you can allow it to live and thrive, you should do that. Just leave it alone. Let it do what it does. It will take care of your property by knocking down a ton of pest insects for you all season long. We only remove these if they're in a dangerous location, as this one was, because it's right a step off of a sidewalk. And that's enough of a risk that many, many people, pets, whoever, would get stung just by walking by this thing. Otherwise, you'd want to leave these wherever you found them. So once phase 1 begins to slow down, we'll show you what phase 2 looks like. That'll happen here after the next couple of minutes of footage. For those who want to skip ahead and go right to the dig phase, that's phase 3. You can find that at about the 28-minute mark on the timeline. For those of you who follow along in sequence, phase by phase, just keep an eye on the numbers of wasps coming in and out of this nest. So we're in the process of just collecting the foragers peacefully, trying to avoid swarming, just catching them as they come in and out in their normal foraging duties. Pretty soon here we're going to take a shovel and we're going to just bang them out by slamming the shovel on the root that's right here above the nest. They probably started this in a root cavity. That's usually what they do, or a rodent cavity. So if we bang on this root, that will vibrate the nest and cause a panic and swarming reaction that will bring a lot of them out up into the collection device. Here you see them come flooding out. And many of them will get sucked up immediately as they try to take flight. As you view this footage, you're seeing phase 2 begin. And each time we vibrate the nest, we slam on the ground or we stomp on the ground near the nest entry point, another flood of wasps will come out. And they're looking to attack whatever is causing this vibration. It's an instinctual defensive reaction. Eventually that immediate panic, attack, defensive response slows down again. And as soon as it does, we go ahead and bang it out again. Vibrate it, stomp it out, bang them out, whatever you want to call it is what we do. And that will cause another flood of wasps to come out. So phase 2 is just this cyclical repetition of that process. Getting them to come out until it slows down, then getting them to come out again until it slows down. And we'll keep that up until no more are coming out, no matter what we do. So over the next few minutes, you're going to see phase 2 clips that are put together here to show you what phase 2 looks like. Okay, so the first attempt at banging them out brought a bunch of them out and into the collection device. So now we're going to do it again. So here you can see phase 2 starting to slow down. There's fewer and fewer coming out each time we vibrate the nest. So that tells us the population of those that are able and willing to come out and defend the nest and attack are now dwindling, and we've collected most of those. Here we adjust the hose a little bit to allow the hole of the hose to be seen from above, because wasps visually orient when they're coming in for a landing, when they're going back to their nest after they've been out foraging. They're looking for a hole in the ground. So if we put our hole right next to their hole, the entry hole, then they will see our hose and explore it, and they will get collected as they come back in from foraging. We make a change like this based on what we're seeing. When we are banging out the wasps and there's no more coming outbound because there's no more to attack because we've collected all of them, then we just focus on the ones that are inbound coming back from foraging like this.
Well, what we're going to do now is use a scope cam, which is a fiber optic camera.
The scope cam is a great tool because it not only acts as a camera that we can put down into the entry of the nest to kind of get an idea where the tunnel goes, so when we go into phase 3, which is the dig phase, we'll know which direction to dig. But it's also good for just probing the nest. As a probe, it stimulates another attack and defensive response. The light on the camera does the same thing, so it also works to bring more wasps out of the nest. You may notice during the collection process that some of the wasps get in or out without getting collected. They're able to escape the suction of the vacuum device, and that's okay. We always expect a few of them to get away, but we get the majority of them and we collect them for Venom Immunotherapy, or VIT. And the idea is when, especially the queens, if there's new queens that escape a little bit, because they're a little stronger, they can walk away from the suction by clinging to the ground and then take flight away and escape. That's okay, because we want these queens to continue to support the local ecosystem with what they do. So they'll start new nests after they hibernate over the winter, and the life cycle will continue. So the nest is not completely destroyed. Some of them always survive, especially some of the newer queens, and that's something that is something we want. We don't want to take this entire breed of insect out of the ecosystem. We want them to continue to thrive. One of the things that we're very aware of when we collect for Venom Immunotherapy is that we are removing a very beneficial insect from the ecosystem. And the best part of that is that even though we are helping patients in the human medical world, we are also not collecting every one of these insects, so we are not damaging the ecosystem per se, because enough of them escape collection that we know they will continue to thrive. So we had collected so many hundreds of wasps, or maybe 1,000 or plus, in this collection bottle that we knew it was time to freeze them. They can't stay in the bottle very long, or they are not viable for Venom Immunotherapy. So while they're still alive and kicking, we'd have to get them out of there and freeze them. So this collection ended at this point, and we did the attrition collection only. There was no dig involved here. Phase 3 comes on a following day. We decided to come back and break it into a 2-day job. And so we'll show you what the dig part looks like in the next section of this video.
September 24th, 2024. We're back again to complete the dig on this ground nest. Eastern Yellowjacket, Vespula maculifrons. First order of business is to collect as many foragers as we can get out of the nest again like we did yesterday. So we'll do that first.
We saw quite a few newly born queens exiting the nest when we were disturbing it to get them to come out.
Queen.
So we knew that the reproductive phase of this nest was well underway. These new queens will come out and they will hibernate over winter after they mate, and they will then wake up in the spring and start their own nests in a different location typically. So as we were banging them out by hitting the root with a shovel over and over again, we were seeing fewer and fewer come out, and it was time then to start the dig. Here we're going to speed up the video at about 4 times regular speed just to save a little time here. As we went through this dig, it was very rocky, very root-filled, hard ground. So that can make the dig a little bit difficult. So we always have to use root cutters and sometimes even saws to get through some larger roots. But it worked out, and eventually we tracked down where this nest is underneath all the root and rock mess, and we found this nest. But the key here when we're doing this sort of removal is swarm control. So you see that we keep the vac running. We try to keep the entry hole of the nest undamaged as long as we can. That way those that are returning from foraging will come back and still try to target the same entry hole. And while they do that, they get collected. Same with when they leave. So that's what you see here is they still keep going back to that same entry hole, and we try to leave that undamaged as long as possible. Eventually, as we zero in on the location of the nest, we will have to remove that entry hole, and you'll see that happen here in a moment after we cut away some more of the roots. We then begin to follow the hole by feeling around for the soft earth that the hole was part of, and as you reach your fingers into these tunnels, you can feel the direction the tunnel goes, and that's what you see here is the process of gently removing a lot of these roots so that we get access to the nest, which happened to be built directly under the large tree root. So as we were tracking the tunnel, it led us right below that root. And of course, on these nest digs, you always want to remove the fewest number of tree roots possible, just so you don't damage the tree.
All right, so we located the nest. It's underneath several roots. Makes it difficult to get to, but it's a great place to live for a wasp because it's very well protected by all the root systems. So right here, all the light colored tan stuff that's all wasp paper. So we're at the nest. Now we just have to excavate the comb and begin to pull it out. And it's behind very thick roots. So it makes it a little challenging to get to, but we'll get it. Starting to see comb. We're going to put all the comb in this bin. They've got the nest tied into a whole bunch of root systems. The queen will often start a nest in a root cavity and expand it from there. They also use rodent dens. So that's likely what happened here. Lots of root cavities for them to grow in. So what you can see right here is the edge of a comb. So we're at the point where we can start pulling the comb. But we're going to try to see the full size of the nest cavity first. Here's some new worker comb being constructed. So now that we're at the nest, we'll be looking for the queen as well. It can be tricky to identify the queen this time of year because the nest is actively making multiple queens right now, like this one right here. This is one of the queens, one of the new queens. She's trying to sting me. But there's many, many queens right now because it's the reproductive time of year. These would be the queens that hibernate over winter and then make a new nest next year. The nest is quite large. It has many layers going deep into this area. So we're going to try to find the bottom of it before we pull it out. There's a lot of queens in there. Most of these are new queens born in the nest, not the foundress queen. There's so many roots in there, in between all the layers, we won't be able to pull the nest in one stack. We're going to have to break it up. There we go. There's our nest. Multiple layers. It's a big one. This looks like our queen. But there are several of them in there, so we're never sure which one is her.
So as we fast forward it a little bit here, we'll mention that the purpose of the follow-up digging after we pull the nest comb out is to sift through the entire cavity that they had dug out and look for either more queens or the original queen or any other tunnels that may have led to more comb. So that's the purpose of going through all of this debris, is just sifting it and being very, very careful and methodical about it so that we don't miss a queen and end up having the nest rebuild itself.
We just keep sifting because we might find a queen at any time. And any of the queens we locate, we definitely want to contain. That looks like about it for the cavity itself. You can see how deep that was. To get back to the surface, it takes this much of the shovel. You measure that cavity space, that's 15 inches to the surface by 15 wide. And they were building back to here, which makes it about almost 20 inches. So 15 by 15 by 20 is the size of this cavity space that had to be dug out to find that nest. Here's another queen on her way out. We're going to capture her right there. So right now I'm just feeling around on the inside of the cavity to see if I can get my fingers into any other spaces that feel like cavities they could be building in. There's tons of little root spaces and cavities in here, but I think we got most of it. A lot of the roots have been chewed away to make nesting material. We're going to spray this cavity with essential oil, soap, and water. That mixture will kill what's left in there and deter the others from coming back. It's a non-toxic spray, and it works really well. Here's another queen exiting. Yeah, so many new queens. So here we have just a regular commercial sprayer filled with non-toxic essential oils. That's peppermint, clove, and lemongrass mixed with dish soap and water. This suffocates all the wasps that get hit by it, and it deters them from rebuilding there. They can't tolerate the odor and the scent of this stuff. So we soak down this area pretty well, and this deters them from coming back because they find that their pheromone is blocked and it's been replaced by a scent they cannot tolerate. layer it in. When we refill the hole, we cover it all with the same oil scents, a little bit at a time. All right, so that's it for this nest. We'll give it one more good spray and then we're done. And we'll get a few forages coming back floating around for a while, but they'll die off in a couple days without the nest to support them. All right, here's our nest contained. It's a pretty good sized nest, big 6-layer nest, making a bunch of new queens. You can see some of them in here. They're very big compared to the workers. So it's a good nest to incubate for VIT. We'll take it back to the barn and we'll incubate this one in the barn lab and collect it for Venom Immunotherapy as more of it pupates out. It's about a 6-layer nest altogether. It's all collapsed in there right now, but there was at least 4 very large combs and 2 smaller combs. And quite a number of new queens and workers. So we'll take this back to let the others pupate out and we'll collect them as well. So in here you see quite a number of new queens. Any of these could be the original queen as well, but there's also some workers in here and some males. The longest antennas that are very long and floppy and curled, like this one there, these are males. The ones with regular antenna are workers, and then the very large ones with regular antenna are queens, new queens being born for the next season. Let's see if we can find one of those in there for you. There's one right there. She's a big one, center frame. Where'd she go? There she is. Anyway, so once we get back to the barn, you see us relocating the brood comb here into an incubation box.
This is a former chest freezer that we leave outside at room temperature with a hole cut into the side of it so that they can go free range when they're out foraging and supporting the brood comb in the nest. So as they pupate out, they can forage, and we can also collect them when we want to from the outside entry hole. The container of liquid you see on top of the incubation box is just sugar water that we mix up as a sort of a nectar replacement for them, and we leave that inside in a tray. This incubation box was an experiment we tried this season, and it actually worked pretty well. We had to tweak some of the way we feed the wasps, but otherwise it did a very good job of incubating the pupae into adult wasps that could be collected later for venom immunotherapy. As always, thanks for riding along with us. If you enjoyed the content on our channel, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.